Hey folks, Triple Crown here, coming to you from Vancouver, British Columbia. This is a round 15 Operation Western Europe game summary conclusion video. The game is over. Should I reveal who won? We'll get into some of the stuff, but wow, what a round it was. Took me a few days of pondering and figuring things out, and wow, what a finale. The game could have gone either way, and those who played BBR know sometimes in the final round, that's, a sign of what happens. And did the Allies outmaneuver the Axis, or did the Axis outmaneuver the Allies? And usually that's what it comes down to. But lots of cool stuff now that we are utilizing all areas of the map, and lots of fun stuff happened. So over here, we'll get into, so this was a battle of dice. So the Japanese attacked up here, the territory of Novosibirsk, which they wanted to do because they wanted to wipe those forces out, which would have secured them all of Mongolia and all of China. So there was 2 points at play here. And the Japanese attacked. They whittled down the Russian units, and they had a whole stack of units sitting here in Urumqi, and the Russians had to counterattack to take it back, and it was mutual destruction. So everybody lost all of their forces. The Russians could have sent another fighter in, however, they wanted to make sure they were going to secure Stalingrad. So the game, at least this point, this area of the board, the China point was on the line, and as well as the, I call it the Rising Sun point. But we'll get into the Rising Sun point further over here. Not a lot happened in the Pacific region this round. The Japanese repositioned their Navy. They purchased a bunch of more Navy, a Yamato, an aircraft carrier, 3 destroyers, 3 subs off the coast of Tokyo, and they're building more fast movers along the coast. If this game was to go another round, I did do the final purchase. Over here, the Japanese forces. Now this is where the game got really interesting, at least for the Japanese. Sorry, I'm gonna reposition myself. So the Japanese had 6 transports here, and this is where I've never done this before, or it's never come into play. So the Japanese, to get the Rising Sun point, they had to take 1 territory or hold 1 territory in South America, and the Americans were ready to counterattack. So, how are they gonna, are they gonna be able to get 2 and force the Americans to counterattack 2? And that was they decided with the best option. So, and I had to look it up because I've never done this before. So this C zone here, the Japanese could go 2 spaces. This C zone here connects to 2 C zones on the other side of the map, which was crucial for the Japanese, because that meant they could attack both Chile and Peru and take 2 territories to secure the Rising Sun point. They decided not to send their Navy, which is still sitting here. There was a lot of small skirmishes and naval battles here, but the Americans had 4 transports up here, and they needed those transports to come, to take back a territory in South America. But all this play down in South America, it probably meant, it meant other things on other sides of the map. Now, another area of, wow, there was a massive battle here, all sides in the Middle East. The Axis were trying to secure 11 oil territories, and they ended up securing, I think it was 9 or 10. So, wow, it was so close. The British were able to counterattack. If this was going to go another couple rounds, I don't know if it would change hands, but the Germans probably, if I was to replay this game, they were going to lose Stalingrad, or the threat of Stalingrad. Well, at least they wanted the Russians to commit to Stalingrad. But anyways, had the Germans, with their bulk of their forces, come down here in the Middle East, they would have very easily been able to, with the Japanese and the Italians, and the Japanese been able to secure that victory point for the second what do you call it? the second point for controlling 11 territories. I think the first one is 6. So if you control 11, you get a second point for controlling oil. But yeah, it's a showdown here. The Japanese still control 1 territory in Saudi Arabia. The British are pushing, I think that's Medina. But I've never actually fought there's never ever been a battle here at all, ever, in any of the 39 games, except for now because of the BBR. And we'll get on down here in South America. And this is also why territories were so important. So this is South America here. And the Americans had transport sitting here, and they could come down one here and land here in Chile. They had to take back Chile. They also had to take back Peru. But as soon as the Japanese attacked, it activated all the other territories. So Colombia and Venezuela also became automatically American. And so there's a naval base here, and this naval base was important because I've never done this before either. So it was 1, 2, 3, and one. They only needed to go 2 to this territory here, Sea Zone 50. The Japanese couldn't stop it, and they had the help from all their heavy bombers, which was pretty overwhelming odds for the Americans. But the Japanese, they had to go for it. It was their best play at securing the Rising Sun Point, which they did not get. Then there was a couple bigger battles up here, Stalingrad. The Russians very easily, all their tanks and armor, were able to retake Stalingrad. They now have sort of control of Narvik, and they're all of control of Finland. And the Russians are a pretty healthy economy now. The Germans are on the retreat. So over here, we'll talk about what happened. The Allies decided to go for Berlin. So that meant that Paris was open for the Italians, and they secured it. They lost, 27 units, and they survived with 3. They didn't have a lot of heavy hitters. The French had a fortification there and maybe 18 or 19 units. So, but they were defending with 4s, and the Italians are mostly attacking with 2s. And this is what survived in Berlin, which is 1 Tiger tank and 2 veteran fighters. It was a wild battle. I had actually recorded it, and I screwed it up. And I had to pause it because I forgot to take off the casualties for the Germans. So the battle didn't make sense, and I had to watch it and figure out where I went wrong. So I couldn't post the video I wanted to. But actually, before the round started, I realized that the Allies were likely going to capture Berlin. And could I have done anything different in hindsight to prevent that? And I very easily could have. I'm Allied focused, I always want the Allies to win. So did that play into it? But I rethought, and the Italians could have helped out reinforcing Berlin with their air force. They had an air transport. So there was actually an additional 6 Italian units with the bulk of the Italian Air Force helping to defend Berlin, which actually swayed the tide because it boosted the German defense, and combined with Italians, to 100 units total. And the British attacked with 56, and it went not even a round and a half of combat before they were completely wiped out. The Germans and the Italians suffered 26 casualties, which bumped them down to 74, and the Americans were attacking with 81. And once the Americans had mostly tanks, half tanks and half artillery and some infantry, and they had 32 casualties on the first round for the Americans, which was pretty much all of their infantry and some artillery. And after that, once they started getting into the tanks, they could not withstand the Italian and German defense, and it was close. The British don't have any air force left, so if this game was going to go on, the Germans definitely would be able to bulk up and save Berlin and make some more pushes. So that's very good news for the for the Axis. And what did it came down to in points? So the Axis were able to secure Let's go over here and have a look. Berlin, Tokyo, Rome, Shanghai, Singapore, Calcutta, Manila, Hong Kong, Warsaw, and Paris. I think that's, let's do a quick count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's 10, which meant they needed to have 8 other victory objectives, and they secured 6, which was the World Oil 1, the China Point, the South Asia, the Imperial Point, which is money for Japan, the Pacific Islands, and for the Allies, and the Pacific Islands for the Japanese. And where they lost the game was, and they probably could have done it, the World Oil 2, and they also lost on the Rising Sun. So the Rising Sun is a pretty tough one to get, as you can see, but that's what it came down to. Now, could the Japanese, have, maybe tried to secure some of these, what are they called, resource points? There's a resource point in Brazil. Like, this game, for many reasons, could have gone, a few different directions. A different player with different ideas very easily could have come up with a few different things in the final inning, or the final innings, or earlier on, to maybe get the victory for the Axis. But wow, it was a ton of fun. Now, traditionally, when you play, say, a Global 40 or BBR, the big difference is, in even 39, prior to having these victory conditions, is that, you would have these opening, 1 or 2 moves that you do, that Germany has, or go to the Japan, and then you're just aiming for victory cities. And there's not really a lot of thought later on in the rounds. Most of the thought is the opening strategy. And now, with the BBR rule set in with the Sire Blood victory conditions in with the 39, it's the same conclusion. It just keeps getting ramped up, and wow, it was a heck of a finish. So it really, the opening few moves are really important to get your stuff and get your economy going. But from that, you're really gearing towards the last few rounds, and the best player or the best teams should win. And it was a heck of a lot of fun. Also a different player, once they perfect this, going to Europe strategy, there's probably things, could the Americans have brought over some of their heavy bombers? Definitely. Would that have opened up things for the Japanese and the Pacific? Definitely. So there's lots of different things that if, one side turned left or right, or went in a different direction, the game could have unfolded in a completely different way. Now, Paris, next turn, would be retaken by the Allies again, and while that happens, the Germans, the Italians are just going to bulk up. So, but yeah, there's no more German Air Force, so you probably would see, if this game was to continue on, the Russians would be making a push west, probably also a push to help the Allies down here in the Middle East, at least for the Russians as well. There's a victory objective that's tied to some of these territories, so they definitely would love to share that with the British. And the Americans are probably, with the Anzac, didn't really do a lot on the Pacific this game, other than trying to hold Sydney, trying to hold Hawaii. Now, would the Japanese have been smarter, instead of parking their Navy here, to go park their Navy off the west coast of San Francisco and threaten San Francisco? That might have also been a better play. It felt like, in hindsight, this Navy over here and this other Navy combined, very easily, if it had parked itself off of the coast of San Francisco early, would have prevented the Americans from maybe building such a big Navy. And, the Americans probably would have then had to defend the coastline of San Francisco and the Pacific Northwest. So lots of different things that could have been played out, but wow, it was a lot of fun. And I apologize for the delay in getting this out. I'm also doing my first bike race of the year tomorrow, so wish me luck. And we'll see if we can get another game of 39 going soon. Thanks for watching, folks.